Welcome to the Golf Podcast Live. I'm your host, Raphael Calamat, alongside Michael Bleakley. We've got a very special guest today. Her name is Diane Knox Balas. She's a co-host with Steve Elkington of the Tour Report on the Apple Podcast, Scottish radio and TV host, making her home now in Florida, teaming up with Secret Golf and Golf Betting Club. Diane, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. You make me sound a lot busier than I actually am.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. There's so much to unpack today and talk about. We're going to be talking about the Sony Open, Hideki Matsuyama with an incredible win, along with so many things happening with the USGA, women's golf, $10 million purse for the first time. We've got the women's event that's happening up in Naples, Florida. That's your neck of the woods. We always talk about the top 10 things that are happening in the golf world right now, so we'll just mention a few things. And we'd like to end off with a funny or embarrassing golf story. So we'll each take a turn. We'll give you lots of time to think about that. But just so our viewers and our listeners get to know you a little bit, tell us about how you got started with golf, you coming from a golf family, and what you're doing today.
Oh, well, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I was very flattered and very honored to be asked to come on your podcast. So, yeah, I'll go all the way back to when I was in Scotland. I did communication and media at university. I knew I wanted to work in media somehow, left university, got into radio and worked at a radio station in Scotland. Well, two big radio stations in Scotland for 12 years. And in 2016, I decided to follow my family and move to Jacksonville in Florida. So that's where the golf connection comes in, because my brother actually plays on the PGA Tour. And Raphael, I love the fact that you only just found this out today.
Normally, I feel horrible. I feel Mike's the one who did the research.
Well, no, because normally people say, oh, Russell Knox's sister. And I'm like, well, I'm actually older than him and I have a name. So it's quite a nice change, I'll be honest. But yeah, so my brother Russell plays on tour and he went to Jacksonville University from Scotland to do a golf scholarship. My dad's from San Diego originally. My mum's from Scotland. So they had lived in Scotland really until Russell was moving over, 2005. They moved to Jacksonville too. So for a long time we were apart. Obviously my career, I'd graduated. I was really, kind of making a name for myself in Scotland in radio and got into a bit of TV hosting over there too. But I decided it was time to make the move across the pond and be with my family. And moving to Jacksonville and having really strong golf connections before I even got here, it really just everything tied together perfectly. And that's how I ended up working in golf. I met this great woman called Judith Coleman, who had worked at the Tour. She worked at Golf Channel. She was very well known in the golf television industry. And she got me into Secret Golf with Elk. And well, the rest is history. I've worked with him since like September 2016, and we do our podcast. Wow. And we have a lot of exciting things coming up with the company. So it's been great. I love working in golf. I'm golf obsessed. I'm a terrible player, but I can talk a good game. So that's all fine.
So your home course is Jack's Beach. Do you spend a lot of time there? Do you have any goals within your golf game at the moment?
Well, yes, Jack's Beach is a brilliant course. It's our little local municipal course here in Jacksonville Beach, and I love it. They do such a good job of keeping that course in great condition. So yeah, I love nothing more than putting in my headphones, going to the range and just kind of switching off. And the good thing is I just got married in September actually. And my husband had never really been into golf. And since meeting me and knowing that we're a golf obsessed family, he's really got into golf. And he's a natural athlete, played football, baseball, basketball, everything his whole life, and he cannot master the game. It drives him insane. So it's one thing that, it's good that the two of us can do together. We're both trying to improve. I would say my goal in golf, and this kind of shows where my game is at, but I want to legit break 100, just by going out and playing the ball as it lies and just not taking strokes, just going out there and shooting 100. But I need to actually go and play. It's been one of those things that there's always an excuse as to why I haven't gone to play. So with the weather being so lovely right now in Jacksonville, I will definitely get out there again soon. It's one of my New Year's resolutions.
Well, your weather is the envy of most of us in Canada. We on the West Coast can play most of the year, but it definitely you get rewarded by putting that time in. And if you could break 100, that would put you in, I believe, the top 10% of golfers. So
really,
good luck with that to both of you and your husband, because you're kind of in the sweet spot of golf, because there's nothing but personal bests coming if you put that time in. So just enjoy this, because the better you get, the harder those rewards become.
Yeah, and it's such a great sport. I mean, I work in golf. I eat, sleep, and breathe it every single day of my life. I mean, throughout the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're prepping for our podcast and our tour report. We do a YouTube show as well. So we're doing all of that. So that really immerses my life Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then you know what it's like. Once the tournament starts, you're fully immersed in PGA Tour leaderboard. And then to add into the mix, you have a sibling who plays on tour. It takes over your whole life. So we keep saying that, it's such a great sport for me to enjoy through work. But then if I can enjoy it recreationally and socially, and, for the two of us to go out and play 18 together, there's nothing better.
Well, Diane, Florida is such a hotbed. It's, they got more golf courses per capita than anywhere else in the world, be it Florida. All the players live out there. You live in a very special area or region, or county, I should say, because you're looking at Sawgrass is so close by, and they got the Players Championship, as well as someone like Jim Furyk and friends now doing their Open event. The women's event is happening out at Naples. I think it's at Tiburon. And here I am freezing in Toronto. We talked just before we went on air about, we just got about 50 centimeters of snow in the greater Toronto area. I live in an area called Mississauga. And here I am watching golf all weekend, the last 2 weeks, be it on any island, but the Sony Open in Hawaii was just outstanding. Hideki Matsuyama winning against Russell Henley. I don't know if you had a chance to watch some of that footage or watch a lot of it, but I feel bad for Russell Henley. Boy from Georgia, he's 56 on the world golf ranking. He's a fourth PGA Tour victory. It would have been his fourth victory. And people don't realize how good he actually is with 33 top 10 finishes. This would have meant and changed his life. And watching him coming down the stretch, hitting his ball into the bunker on 18, and then just not being able to close the door. He almost made that putt on 18, and then they teed it up again, goes back into the bunker. What do you make of it? When you're watching these guys, it's sometimes just one stroke, right? It's one differential of a club choice or a caddy's choice. It's not an easy game.
I mean, the thing about Russell Henley is he's an insane talent with his irons, and the stripe show that he put on over 4 days, and even on the Sunday, up until the end, there were not many wayward shots that he hit. And there just seems to be this horrible issue with closing for him. And you look at the US Open at Torrey Pines that John Rahm won eventually, but he had the 54-hole lead and then fell apart on Sunday. We saw it at the Wyndham Championship last year as well. I think I read a stat that he'd been the 36-hole leader 6 times, and he'd only gone on to win one of those tournaments. But he played incredible golf. When you look at someone dialed in with their irons, there's really few people that are better than Russell Henley. One of them may be Hideki Matsuyama, who went on to win. And it was actually because he had a 5-shot lead at the turn. That's the thing that it's so hard to fathom. But then you have Matsuyama, who's just, on another level right now. Master champion. He had that commanding lead and won the Zozo in his home country. We've seen a different Hideki since the Masters, and he's extremely hard to beat. The playoff was hard to watch because Hideki playing hybrid off the tee sticking that 3-wood to 2 feet, and then Henley making a mess over the green. I mean, he could have conceded. I didn't know that. I was watching that on the telecast, and they said that in the rules, a player can't actually concede in a playoff, but fair play to him for finishing. And yeah, I mean, he's got to know he's so close.
It's so close. It's just incredible, the fact that, like you alluded to, after 9 holes, I started making all my notes for Russell Henley for today's podcast. I wasn't even considering Hideki because he had a 5-shot lead. He went birdie, birdie, eagle, I believe, going into the back 9. And something changed. I even saw something in his swing. Being a golf teaching professional for so many years, you start seeing that he starts folding. He's not extending on his follow through. Something that was happening to him the day before on a couple of holes. And he starts hitting the wayward shots. Also his choice. I mean, this is your moment. You're in the bunker on a playoff, and you decide to choose a 5 or 6 iron. You have to go for it. Mike was mentioning last night, we were talking about he should have chosen something different off the tee because he already put himself into the bunker. But he felt so comfortable all week with that 3-wood. But he should have just went for it. Taken a 5-wood, just bail it into the stands, like a lot of professionals do, and then you go up and down, you get a free drop, and just go for it. Because Hideki hit it 328 yards. He's got 211 to the flag. Of course he's going to go for it. You got to think that he's going to be putting for eagle, or you'll be chipping very close by. So he was playing safe, and I'm not sure that was the best decision. And I just want to give him the props he deserved. Because let's look at his amateur career. National teams, Porter, Walker, Palmer Cups. He's got career lows of 61 that he's played. Career high 13th in 2017 for the FedEx Cup. And, $18.5 million in career earnings isn't too shabby. These purses are getting crazy. But Mike, you wanted to mention something about Henley as well.
Henley, I think, projected this on Saturday night when he said he doesn't sleep well in the past before, the night before the following round. And to me, that sounds like the confidence was already a little bit tarnished. And despite having a 5-shot lead, like, you get comfortable in that position. You have a player like Hideki who is a grinder. He did it. He chipped away at it. I had a feeling Hideki was going to catch him on Saturday, and I'm a fan of both. Like, there's nothing bad to say about either player. I can absolutely empathize with Russell Henley. Because I've been there as a golfer and in tournaments, and you think that things are going great, you're having an awesome day, and then boom, duck hook one out of bounds, and shit happens on the golf course. So, but I think Henley is going to have a little bit of regret. Those 2 shots on 18 and in the playoff, especially seeing Hideki pound that drive. Hideki was playing with no fear. He was playing to win. And I think Henley had a little bit of fear crept in. And it's not that he hit bad shots on those. He had bad lines. So had he trusted his line to be a little bit more to the left and challenge that left bunker a little bit more, there might have been a different winner today.
And Hideki, that's the best putting performance we've seen from him in such a long time. Saturday was unbelievable. So you knew that the mindset that he was in with the confidence that on Sunday. I was surprised that Henley did have a 5-shot lead at the turn. I thought it was going to be a lot closer at that stage. Then, of course, we had the back 9.
Hideki, it means a lot to him. People don't realize as well that this is the Sony Open. It's a Japanese-sponsored event. There's a large Japanese community on the island. You could tell by how many fans were actually following him. There were more fans following Hideki than all the other golfers put together. It was just insane. And I love the fact that they opened everything up, right, Diane? Mike, did you see how everybody came onto the fairway? Right on the 18th hole. That was pretty nice and reminiscent of a lot of things. But Hideki's very stoic. When he missed that putt on 16, you could see how it's the first time I saw some emotion from him since the Masters. There's some real emotion, and because he's much older. He's much younger than he actually looks or acts because of how stoic he really is. And this is going to make great drama for the new Netflix series that's coming out for and following all these golfers. It's really going to put, I think, the PGA Tour on the map. The way they did with the F1 series and with Michael Jordan's documentary series. It's going to be really, really interesting. Have you guys been following any of that?
Yeah, what I think is going to be a really interesting point is that the PGA Tour have said that they have no editorial control over what goes into the show. And I know that they started interviewing players at the Bahamas event, the Hero World Challenge, at the end of the year. I read a source that had said that Brooks Koepka had done his first sit-down interview and it was explosive.
I heard about that.
And I think we're really going to see a lot of these characters coming through with their personalities. And I don't mean personalities like kind of over the top playing to the camera. I mean, we're just going to get to know them and their thoughts and what life is like for them. We kind of get this look at them that's two-sided. We see them on the course and then we can see their social media. But some of these guys, maybe they don't do their own social media. They're not, you know, who they are when they're playing. You can't say that that is a representation of who they are when they're off the course or warming up or practice rounds. So I think it's going to be really good to get to know the players a little bit more and to open up golf to a newer audience.
Yeah, Netflix has a massive audience, and you know, when we see these tour players interviewed after a round, they're very polished. We're not getting any even PG content out of them. So to have a interview where you know things are a bit looser, it's going to be great. Like it makes me think of Faraday. And how many players that I've watched be interviewed by David Faraday, and you realize that, hey, I've actually grown fonder of that person. Like Sergio Garcia, you know, everyone knows a fantastic athlete and he's done a lot of things in his career, like spitting in cups and saying things about the Open tournament and right, but. And he's just like seeing that Faraday interview with him just sort of like helped you understand, you know, that he's a person and he runs a little hot. So, you know, things are going to come out. If he had a 5-minute filter before every press conference, he probably would have said a lot different over the years. So I think this Netflix series is going to expose another side of golfers that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, me too.
You know, traditionally, golf has been, you know, projected in a certain light, and there's a lot of tradition involved. There's a lot of things that the PGA wants to keep quiet. You know, for years, players have been fined $5,000 plus for cursing on network television, and you know this information is not made public. Very much like the PIP program, I think a lot of people are upset with the fact that you can't see these metrics. You can't see how they measure all of this. If they came out with a dashboard that's live, that would go viral and would help the game, where everybody could follow how everybody's doing. Wouldn't that be wild? And people would talk about that. You know, there's a lot of back and forth happening on Twitter. You know, with DeChambeau, obviously, and Koepka. That's a lot of fun. Recently, this weekend, there was you know, some other back and forth with Na. I don't know if you've if you guys have followed that.
Oh yes.
And so that's been a lot of fun. DeChambeau's probably the only one with an actual YouTube channel, which is pretty incredible. However, you know, him saying this weekend, telling everybody he doesn't want to do the Netflix series because he wants to give everyone else a chance to catch up. Is, get the chip off your shoulder. You're fantastic for the sport. He's great. It's amazing what he's doing, but sometimes he sticks his foot in his mouth, don't you think?
I think that was maybe taken the wrong way by a lot of people. I think I don't think he was saying it in like a kind of conceited way. I think he was saying it in that he knows that he gets a lot of attention. And sometimes I don't think he wants it. Sometimes I think he does. I think he's a very unique character. He's very different. And I think that a lot of this attention just comes to him without him seeking it. So I read that. When I read it the first time, I thought, oh, come on, big head. But then I really thought about it and was like, no, he's probably taken quite a bold confident stance on that to say, well, no, I know that even if I don't want to be the center of this, someone's going to find a way to make me the center of it, whether it be with this Brooks Koepka feud, or talking about his diet or his science, his ball speed, working out there. You know, I thought it was quite a good thing for him to say, a good explanation once you kind of dug deep.
That's a first. You know, I love that perspective. I really do, because you don't hear it. You got the social media mob just chasing him. I didn't really feel that, but you know, it's absolutely true. I could see your point. Um, I'm excited to see what happens in this year and how everything comes together. One of my favorite moments last year was the Ryder Cup. All of them coming together, seeing that post event conference going on where they had some drinks and they didn't even know that they had to have obligations of doing, and it was probably the most entertaining thing I've seen in 2021. And let's just change gears for just a little bit and talk about women's golf. I think it's really exciting that the USGA has announced, we talked a little bit about this last week, putting a $10 million purse on the USGA. They're showing a lot more women's golf on television. It's exciting to watch. Lots of characters in the sphere of the women's field. Not as dramatic. They're very, they're a lot more humble. I think there's a little bit of a communication barrier because we have so many Asian players. And so when they do their interviews and when they're interacting with North American media, it's not as polished. However, you know, you got the Corda sisters, you know, Nelly leading things with being #1 in the world, her gold medal. She's pretty proactive. You know, Lexi Thompson, doing really well and being very proactive in what she's doing. And Lydia Ko coming back up. They're playing this week in Naples over at Tiburon for the Champions event. Any thoughts about the women's tour, Diane?
I love the LPGA Tour. I always have. I've been to many LPGA Tour events, and I've been as a fan and I've been as working media. And what I will say is, you're right, there is a difference, and they just seem to get on. There's such a nice vibe, a great atmosphere at LPGA Tour events. And I always say to people, go to one, like buy a ticket, take your kids, take your friends and go and have a day there, because it's amazing golf. For one, the quality of golf from these women is unreal. You know, a lot of the time, and it's kind of sad to say, but the crowds aren't so big. So you get to see a lot of action right at the ropes. And from the kind of media side of things, where you get to go inside the ropes, so to speak, and see them after their rounds, there's a lot of camaraderie between these women. You know, they're out there together, they're traveling either, you know, by themselves or with their partner and their families, and there's friendships, and it's just something that you don't see on the PGA Tour. So it's really nice to see, and the fact that there's more money being pumped into women's golf is just amazing. And also the fact that there's promises that purses are going to increase year after year. There's going to be more money. A lot of sponsors have really said, we're invested in this and we'll continue to be invested in women's golf for a long, long time. So it's great. I can't speak highly enough about it. And I encourage everyone to really get involved and follow the LPGA Tour as much as they can.
You know, kudos to Hilton Grand Vacations for doing such a great job in supporting these LPGA Tour players. You know, they're really pushing a different type of event where they have celebrities, they have a music night. It should be pretty exciting. I don't know if you're going to have a chance to get out there to Naples this weekend, but it sounds like a lot of fun. And the women are great ambassadors for the sport. I feel like they go over and beyond what they're expected to do. And it's very admirable for what the women are doing in the sport, right, Mike?
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize how good they are, and we've talked about this a lot since we started this show. And they're great ball strikers, and some of them are incredibly long. But beyond that, it's their iron and wedge play. It just, they make it look easy. You look at Nelly Corda's swing, and that's what you want to have your golf swing look like. She just throws darts, all day. And my thought is that it's just going to grow more from here, because I believe it's the Tiger effect still paying off in terms of the popularity. All these kids that have grown up watching Tiger play are now maturing. And I think there's still a generation of that to translate into pro golf, especially LPGA, but the other tours as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of amazing golfers on that tour.
Yeah, well, I would love to see, you know, we've had quite a few of these matches now. We just had the Brooks and Bryson one. We've had celebrities involved, sportsmen involved. I would love to see a PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, massive, all this money pumped in, go to Vegas, and have them play either team format or against each other.
I think there's opportunity to combine tournaments, and we talked about this with one of our guests, Carrie Moffat, a month ago. We could, say we'll take the Honda Classic. I believe I used that example before. Merge the fields together. So say you have 80 men, 80 women, or stagger the events so they follow each other, so the infrastructure's there, the stands and the cameras and everything, and figure out a way to do it economically. So it can create a solid event for men and women.
Yeah, I think they've done it in the past with the USGA, where they had a back-to-back women's open when Michelle Wie won, and they had the men's event and then the women's event. I forget again where it was. However, that was a great setup, and that's a great idea, Mike. And it's funny that you mentioned going to events. So I encourage anybody listening or watching. We're now on Apple and iHeartRadio as well. So if you're not seeing us, just get out there. I mean, especially if you're out in Florida and you haven't been out to an event. I mean, it's sort of something that's in your backyard and you could go out and watch, but in any state or any place that you are, go watch men's and women's golf, support this sport, and Champions Tour golf, men's senior golf is exciting as well. You have all these legends of the game. It's very exciting. When I did talk radio back in the mid 2000s on CJAD 800 AM in Montreal, Canada, it was amazing that when I did all the stats for the women's players, I would always be asked, like, what are you talking about? Well, nobody knew any of these players. None of them were household names, even in the golf world. Somebody who's spent 20 years in the golf biz didn't know who these women were. And now we're finally learning. The purses are growing. It's very exciting. Mike and I have had the opportunity to do some media hits and spots for West Island Golf Media and CJAD back in 2007 during the President's Cup. And I've done several Canadian Opens as well. And so we get to, and the women's CN Open is pretty incredible out here in Canada for the women's event. We have the Champions event out in Calgary every year, and that's exciting. Maybe we could talk just a little bit, now that I found out that Russell is your brother, Russell Knox. Tell me about his journey. Like, we don't know too much about that. It's funny, you being Scottish. Mike, you got Scottish roots as well. I don't know why we're not seeing more Scottish players. Scotland is the home of golf. I've always said Golf Canada's done a fantastic job over the last 20 years. Their goal back in 2000, when I was part of the professional golf management program, was to get 5 professionals in the top 100. Now, it never actually materialized, but now we have several, if not 11 players rotating, Canadians, on the PGA Tour, several on the Corn Ferry Tour, and then the other smaller tours like the Mackenzie and Latin American Tour and the European Tour. Why aren't we seeing more Scottish players? And tell us a little bit about your brother.
I will. Well, I will say, I saw a great stat the other day about the countries that had the largest amount of players within the top 1,000 in the world, and Scotland was top. So there it's just, and there's a lot of, I mean, when you look at the PGA Tour, obviously Russell, Martin Laird, Robert McIntyre, who's a ridiculous talent. I mean, that guy is just, he hits the ball a mile. He's one of the nicest, most humble, down-to-earth people. He has got huge things ahead of him. He finished great at the Masters last year, so he's playing at Augusta then again this year. So Robert McIntyre, for sure, huge Scottish talent. There's a lot doing well on the European Tour, or sorry, the DP World Tour, as it's now known as. I'm going to have to get used to that. But people ask me this a lot, and I always say to them, it's just such a different setup. If you've never experienced like that kind of quest to become a professional athlete in any other country compared to the US, it's night and day. I mean, college sport in the US is where, if you want to be a professional athlete, it is the place to be, let's be honest. And so many people come from all over the world to go to college and university in the US on these scholarships, and then they have amazing opportunities ahead of them. But if you can't do that, so say you're in Scotland and there's just no way that you're going to be able to get a scholarship, maybe, you know, there's financial implications, of course, having to move to the other side of the world and families and whatever. So if that's not on your radar and you have to do it yourself in Scotland, it's harder. It's a harder journey for sure. So I think, you know, looking at Russell, and Russell will be the first to say this, he was in such a privileged position in that, first of all, my mum and dad fully supported him following his dream of becoming a professional golfer. Financially, they could help him out and make this a reality for him, because I don't think he had a 100% scholarship. So they had to help him financially to do it. But also, given the fact that my dad's American, we have dual nationality. So when Russell graduated and wanted to turn professional, it was very easy for him to do because he has an American passport and can live and work in the US. So that was very easy for him. So, and he'll be, as I said, he'll be the first to admit that he had a pretty easy path to break into the professional golf realm. But I mean, I say easy in that you still have to then perform and play well and work hard and travel the country on mini tours and really pay your dues to climb up and eventually get your card, which has worked out great for him. But
yeah, you still got to make the shots and the putts and grind in. Yeah, absolutely.
Yourself a lot of the time doing it as well.
Yeah, but he's definitely very lucky to have parents who are keen and just to help, even if it's a little bit. But because I know the tour in Europe, it's easier to get around. You know, instead of crossing overseas, you know, for someone from Scotland to go to America, there's a lot of hoops to go through. So I think if it was easier for Europeans to jump over the pond, you know, we might see more players over there. You know, obviously that's their goal, is to get to the PGA Tour. But now that the DP World Tour is in place, and there's going to be a lot of money over there. And even you've seen guys like Brooks Koepka go over to Europe first and learn how to play over there, and then come home and have success. So, you know, we might see that. I know a lot of guys from the Vancouver Golf Tour out here have gone over to Europe to try to qualify, you know, and go that route versus the Corn Ferry Tour, PGA Tour routes.
Yeah, I mean, Russell played on the Hooters Tour, the mini tour. I don't know what it's called, not called that anymore in Florida, but and it wasn't just Florida. I think it was all over the place. He would, you know, he'd be by himself for a lot of his time. A lot of the time, he would pick up a caddy wherever he was. But you know, you're driving around, and he did really well on that tour and made a lot of money. But the purses aren't huge. He said that when he got his first win, one of his best friends, he caddied for him, and they went to the bar afterwards and bought drinks and food for everyone in the bar, and they spent pretty much the whole paycheck. But you know, it's one of those things that there's a very small percentage of people. You were talking about it earlier with the tiny percentage that can break 100. There's a minute percentage of guys that are good enough and have the sustainability and the motivation to go out there and actually turn pro and play on these mini tours and build themselves up eventually to meeting their goal on the PGA Tour. And, you know, that's obviously the dream. But I have seen the side of it, you know, from Russell's perspective, where he went through Q school from, it was the Nationwide Tour at the time. He didn't get into, he missed Q school by one shot so many times. So he was like, well, if I can't make it onto the Nationwide Tour, I'm never going to make it to the PGA Tour. And he had to change his tactics. And he said, well, I'm just going to try and Monday qualify for these nationwide events and see what happens. Because I feel like I can play really well on one day compared to like what the 4 or the 6 rounds you have to play for Q school. And that's how he got his card. He qualified. I think he finished top 3. Then that got him the next tournament, and he won that. And his first year on the Nationwide Tour, he finished in the top 25 to get his tour card, and he's been on the PGA Tour ever since. But
that's amazing.
You see the highs and the lows, and it's not all highs. Like I always say that. And there's some really low, dark times for them when they're not playing great. You know, that's all they know how to do.
That's tournament golf. There's more low and darkness than there is brightness. It really humbles you. Even as in amateur tournaments, which I play a lot of, there's nothing better than success when you can pull out a win or, you know, just a good performance. But it's a long drive home from a tournament after you've absolutely just, you know, blown it. So yeah, it's a tough game. So, and the percentage of professional golfers out of the whole entire fleet of golfers has got to be 0.001%. It's got to be a very minute number.
Yeah. And Russell will find me saying this because he's very transparent and he wears his heart in his sleeve. But you know, the past couple of years have not been great for him. And in 2020, he finished, I think, 127th in the season-long FedEx Cup points list. And had it been a normal year, he was out with the 125 and he would have had limited status. But because of COVID, the tour said, well, everyone keeps their same status for the following year. So he was kind of got a bit of a get out of jail free card. But, you know, I've talked to him after tournaments where he just has said, oh, I feel lost. Like, I don't know what I'm doing out here. Like, I'm so unhappy with my game. I can't, you know, you do see that side of it. And that's the side that no one else is going to see. They're not going to go on social media or on TV interviews and tell people that. So
yeah, Diane, to your point and to Mike's point, I mean, we're really talking about the 1% of the 1%, you know, and you need that support. And it's not just financial. I mean, you got to be continually working on your game. You have to have a good plan and a map. And that's why it's so important to have a coach. And a coach not being somebody who's just showing you physically or mentally what to do, but somebody who's going to lay out your year and take the steps, because you could always go to the wrong qualifier, wrong event. There's the travel, living, you know, out of a bag, you know, out of your car, going to these events. A lot of these players have RVs. We talked about that before we went on, and traveling that way. You know, we were looking at players like Michael Visacki we saw last year, who ended up playing in an event, and how emotional these players get, both on the men's and women's side, when they finally pull through, because we as an audience or as fans don't always see the grind. And that's why I think Netflix is going to be great for that reason. We're going to see the dramatic part of these players having to travel and wait. We've had a Canadian named David Hearn who went out to Hawaii because he was 15th alternate, right? So he's waiting. He was falling back. He ended up becoming 4th alternate, doesn't get to play. So you're spending all this time and money to have an opportunity to get on because you don't have full status. And there's a lot of players out there. And Mike, you talked about Faraday. When he was playing, and he won the Scottish Open in the early 80s, 83 or 84 when he won, totally different game, different player, very skill-oriented players, didn't practice as much, and you know, the travel, the money wasn't there, and so the incentives and the support systems weren't there. Where in the US, you go and play for a university. Before it was Division I golf that you had to play. Now Division III players in university and college golf are good enough to play on any one of these tours. These kids are incredible. You know, they're walking around with their computers, their shot makers, and their coaches, their teams, and they're 16, 17, 18 years old. Whereas it was amazing if you were able to make it out on tour at 21, 22 years old, like Tiger did back in 96, 97. That was a huge accomplishment. Now we've got someone like Batia, who's playing out on the Corn Ferry Tour, playing in Bahamas, and he turned pro at 17. He was doing it while he was trying to finish high school. You know, we've got a whole different style of player. And
that's what I'm saying, is that there is going to be a plethora of talent coming out over the next 5-10 years. And you touched on it right there, these 16-year-old kids with TrackMans in their bag, and you know, so just give it a little more time, and we're going to be blown away. I think it'll be a while until we see another Tiger Woods, maybe not in our lifetimes, but we're going to see people coming out and winning 4 or 5 a year easily.
That's a money thing. I'm telling you, there's not going to be many kids at the range in Scotland with their TrackMan at 16 years old.
Yeah. No, absolutely. If it's 15, 16 grand.
I think the national associations need to step up. I think what Golf Canada did here, we've got more golf courses per capita than anywhere else in the world. I think Japan just surpassed us. We've got over 2,500 golf courses. It's a very seasonal sport, so there has to be a huge support system to go down south and play 6 months out of the year, because we get a peak season of 5 months out of the year. Mike's out in Vancouver. And out there, you've got better weather. It's West Coast weather. He could play 9 months out of the year pretty much, maybe year round sometimes, but not the type of weather you want to practice.
Most years we can play. No, it's a bit tough when it's raining and wet and, 5, 6 degrees, which would.
It's a northern Scottish weather. Right?
I know, right? Not really.
Yeah, it's just like home for you, Diane. So it's, but it's enough to go out and you can do it, right? So last year was great. We had a really mild winter, and I played all year. I had in November and December I got 30 rounds in, which was just amazing. It was unheard of. So this year we did have some snow, and so the courses did shut down for a bit, which is kind of rare, but they're open now. So I finally hit some balls this weekend for the first time in 5 months. I had hernia surgery in September, Diane, so I've been basically on the IR for quite a while. So I'm finally starting to play again. So
great! I'm happy for you.
Diane, I wanted to just flip the switch here and talk maybe about any initiatives that you're involved with. Tell us a little bit about Golf Betting Club, Secret Golf, what they do and how you're involved with them.
Great. Well, I'll start with Golf Betting Club, just because we were talking about Scotland, and it's two Scottish guys, Duncan and Neil Campbell, who during 2020 and the pandemic, with work and being at home, they thought, well, let's try and take our passion that we do for fun as two brothers talking about this on the Sunday of a golf tournament and make it into a business. So they founded Golf Betting Club, and they have a subscription service where they'll send you tips every week. And then they'd asked me to come on board just towards the end of last year to do a show with them. They had no media experience. They have their website and they have their subscription service, but they wanted to do a podcast and the show. So we do the closing stretch every Sunday. We do it really early in the morning, my time, but way before the first group tees off on a Sunday. And we're just looking at really the contenders. They look at who their in-play bets are, who they're going to tip for the win. They do some great parlays. They have really good field analysis. So that's a fun show. We do it on YouTube, and we have a podcast as well. So you can find it there, Golf Betting Club, and on all the podcast apps and websites. And then Secret Golf, as I said, I've been involved with since 2016 when I first moved here. And I work with Steve Elkington is just a brilliant person. He is so funny. Not only is he a boss to me, he's a real friend now. And he just texts me the second. We talk all day, every day. He's almost like, if I called him my second dad, he'd be mad. He's like a kind of big brother / uncle. But we do a show called The Tour Report, which comes out every Wednesday. We put a lot of work into the show, and we really handicap the field and give our top picks. So we have that as a podcast that comes out on a Tuesday, and then the show on YouTube on a Wednesday. But he sees things in player swings that I will never in 100 million years be able to identify, but he'll spot things. His eye is just unbelievable when it comes to the swing. I mean, he has one of the most beautiful golf swings of all time anyway.
He does.
He just finds these tiny little things, and he's very rarely wrong when he's onto something with a player. So
well, you can't be wrong with Steve Elkington. I mean, he's quite the strapping fellow. He's 6'2", coming out of the University of Houston, but he's Australian, right? He's Australian, and he's he's had a great scoring average. I'm not too sure how active he is anymore on the Champions Tour, but he's had quite the career.
Yeah, I mean, he plays golf every single day. He played the Champions Tour for a very little amount of time, but he stopped because he didn't enjoy the travel element of things. And even towards the end of his PGA Tour career, that's the thing that he's always said. He wanted to be at home, and he's got an amazing home in Houston. He loves his animals and he loves his garden, and he's obsessed with all things grass and trees and horticulture. Agronomy is his thing. If you want to talk to him about golf course grass, then he is the man, because he studied agronomy, and that's 100% his passion in life. I'm building a new house right now, and he's already said to me, "Oh, when you get the house, I'll help you with all the plants and the trees." So,
well, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
You know, what stands out for me with Steve Elkington was, I guess, 1991, him winning the Players Championship. You know, and then the Buick Challenge. That was a big event in 1998. But he's got 10 PGA Tour victories, and an additional 10 worldwide. So he's no slouch. He's got a great
champion, major champion in 1995, and winning the Players twice.
Yes,
that's such a huge thing, to be a two-time Players champion. I mean, he's achieved a lot in his career, but winning the PGA Championship as a major champion, he's like, the thing is, you're never forgotten. People will always remember. They might not remember which major you won, but they will always remember you as a major champion. And then, a two-time Players champ. I've been lucky enough to be at the Players with him a lot and be there at the start of the week where we've maybe walked 16, 17, 18, and he'll talk through the shots that he hit those days. And it's he's a fantastic storyteller and an extremely talented golfer with an amazing career, and it's really cool to experience some of this with him.
About 15 or 18 years ago, we were down in Phoenix and playing a course called the Phoenician, and Steve Elkington was in the group ahead of us. So it was really neat, just like, being 300 yards away, you could recognize that swing from a distance, and it made the experience a little more fun.
If we're ever out in Florida, it would be a good foursome if the four of us went out, remind him of all his glory days, defeating Colin Montgomery at the PGA Championship or Bruce Litsky at the Mercedes. I won't mention that he lost to Nick Price at the Texas Open. I remember in 1992, but he's had quite the career. So kudos to you and everything that you're doing. It's pretty wild. It's wonderful. You said something about a house. You said when you get into your house, you'd want him to help you plan. Are you building a house, or are you planning to buy a house?
No, we're building. So we just we started the building process in August last year. So we're now at the stage where we actually have framing, and we're about to have a roof on this week. So we I feel like to go through planning and everything, that just took such a long time where nothing happened. And now we're at the stage where there's something happening all the time. So
that's exciting.
My husband's called Garrett. So every Friday night now, after he finishes work, we're going to go to the house, and that's our little date night to see what they've done on the house that week. So we should be in middle of June. That's what we're aiming for. You know what it's like right now. There's delays, and they'll blame it on COVID. So we're hoping middle of June.
Seems to be a common denominator right now. So I'd like to, switch gears over and talk about DJ Foxy Noxy. So,
I know nothing. It's not my fault.
You were a host on Clyde 1, which is a radio station in Scotland. Is that local to Inverness, or is that a national?
That was actually Glasgow. So I worked at the Inverness-based station, was called Murrayfirth Radio, and then I moved to Clyde 1 in Glasgow, and that covered Glasgow in the west. And then I did a show from there that covered the whole of Scotland. So that was kind of the main station, the big station in the middle of Scotland.
And you mentioned you actually got behind the decks yourself.
I did.
Is that okay? Nice.
So funny story, because I know you guys did, and I probably did it for the wrong reasons, but I'll tell you why. So I had worked on the radio for such a long time, and I would get people asking me to come and like DJ at their parties and stuff. And I was like, do I really want to do that on a Saturday night, go and play at someone's wedding or birthday party? And then I found out the amount of money that they were willing to pay, and I'm like, I'll do it. So I learned, And I would be on YouTube watching tutorials. I bought all the equipment, I took lessons, and I DJ'd in clubs and bars and at people's events for probably 3 or 4 years. And I loved it, but I couldn't do it for much longer than that because I love going to bed early. And these clubs would book me to go and play, and they would be like, oh, just for 1 hour starting at 1 a.m. And I'm like, I can't start at 1 a.m. I'm usually going to sleep for 4 hours at least on a Saturday night. So,
but that's when people are ready for it. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah. So I loved it for a very short period of time. And my motivation for doing it was purely money, I'm not going to lie, but I ended up loving it. It was fun. So I kind of miss those days a little bit now, but yeah.
Well,
maybe
I could attest to the fact that, that's how Mike and I met. Many of our listeners or viewers may not know this, but Mike and I used to DJ in the clubs and bars in the mid 90s. Now we're aging ourselves. I haven't done it since, but Mike professionally has gone on to be a guest DJ from, we were talking about this yesterday, Mike. You were in Hawaii, you've gone up and down the West Coast, you've done some really great
Mexico,
things.
and I played.
That's pretty wild. I haven't done that for years.
I still, other than COVID, like I still play occasionally with all the restrictions and whatnot that are happening up here. The DJ world is sort of on pause. But I've always had a fondness of house music, and that's what led me into DJing. Okay. And so I still will keep it up. I still have an active record, or more, it's all digital now, but I do have records here on the side of me, so you can see them. The decks are all on that side, but yeah, I still do it.
What's your number one song, your dance floor filler song?
Well, that's always a tough one to answer because, like, if you're playing music just to, if it's a commercial gig, then probably go back to the 90s, like Robin S. Show Me Love would be. If you were there was a point when that was an underground song and it crossed over into the commercial scene, and if you're ever struggling to fill the floor, you could put that on and it would just, everybody and their grandmother would run out onto the dance floor.
You just thought of the greatest thing, because if you're playing 90s music, you go on to do a white tent night at these Champions Tour events, or even the LPGA or PGA events, to get everybody, a good night, because they are doing music nights. It'd be a great idea to have just a few hours of fun under a tent.
A few years ago, I went to the Honda Classic. It's West Palm Beach, so a couple of hours drive from Jacksonville, and my now husband and some friends, we all went down, and it was the first golf tournament I'd ever been to just as a fan. So my brother had missed a cut, so he wasn't playing, and I didn't have to work, and I had never been to a tournament where I was free to do whatever. So we had a great day, hardly watched any golf, had probably too many drinks, and then we're leaving, and as we're walking out, I'm like, where is this music coming from? Like, it was pounding. So we kind of walk around, and there's a white tent, and you could not, this was just before COVID, you couldn't move in the tent. And they had a DJ set up, and the bar open, and there were a couple of hundred people crammed in this tent after a golf tournament as the sun was going down, just having the bit, partying like it was 1 a.m.
That's
and
amazing.
We stayed and we had a great time, and I'm like, more people would come to golf tournaments if they knew that this is what it was like.
This is fantastic. Yeah. PGA, LPGA, Champions Tour. If you're listening, we're up for hire. All three of us. You can have us at your event, and we could host it as well.
I've won DJ competitions, by the way, too. I'm good at it. So.
Wow, that's so cool. I've never won a DJ competition.
We're running on 1 hour almost. We're at 54 minutes. I want to touch on the fact that all of us have funny or embarrassing golf stories. I'll start. I'll break the ice so you guys could think about it. But I was at the Canadian Open. Everybody remembers Tiger Woods doing his 6-iron shot from a fairway bunker on number 18 at Glen Abbey in Oakville, Canada during the Canadian Open, where he went over the water, went right over the flag, landed, and ended up winning the tournament in 2000. Well, I was standing right there at the fairway, and the group before Tiger included Mr. Davis Love III. And I was under a tree. He didn't hit it as far as Tiger. He hit it into a bunker. just off of the fairway to the right. And it was the bunker behind the one Tiger was at. So some of you who remember the tournament would know the bunker, the shot that keeps on being replayed. It's one of the greatest known shots that Tiger ever did. If you watch the compilations, you'll see Tiger. Anyways, I was standing right there, and I had one of those disposable cameras with a flash, but I thought I turned the flash off. So I was standing behind the bunker. I'm like, oh, look at that. It's Davis Love. This is 21 years ago. And so I'm standing maybe several yards away. And on his takeaway, I clicked my camera and the flash went off. He hit his shot perfectly because he was laying up. He couldn't get it over the water, but he looked right at me. He goes, you! He goes, there's no cameras on the golf course. And I had an ear-to-ear smile because I'm like, Davis Love is speaking to me. This is great.
For the wrong reasons.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons. And I apologized, obviously, and he kind of smirked and looked over and just went over. But he hit a great shot, and that's my kind of one of my embarrassing stories. I'm running out of them because Mike and I have shared lots on the show. So whoever wants to go next.
Over to you, Diane.
Oh my gosh. Do you know this story? I vowed that I would never tell. So I like you guys, so I'm going to tell this story now, but it's very embarrassing for me. So this was in 2019. Yeah, 2019. This makes it even worse. So I was at the Hilton Head tournament at Harbour Town Golf Links, and I was invited up for the weekend. Or for the whole week I was working, and I was invited to a party. It was one of these like fancy agency parties. So it was an agency that represented a lot of the golfers. So it's at this beautiful house on the ocean. I walk into this party, it's all catered. I'm a little bit nervous. I mean, I'm quite a confident person, but I knew people, but I didn't really like have friends there that I could hang around with. So I knew I was going to have to just go and like talk to everyone. So there's quite a few players there. And like Brant Snedeker was there, spoke to him for a while, Brian Harmon, JT Poston, and then I get chatting to this really nice blonde haired girl. So her and I are yapping away. And then her husband comes over and he's like, oh, hi, how are you? And I was like, oh, he's very friendly. I said, oh, hi, I'm Diane. Do you work for the agency? And he's like, nope, I'm Harris English. I'm like, oh no. So not only do I work in golf, but Russell and Harris are really good friends. They've known each other for a long time. But first of all, guys look very different with their hats off, right? That's number one. That's true. He said it, I'm like, I know you, like I know exactly who you are. And he had not been having a good time. I think he had conditional status on the tour at that time. And he had played Corn Ferry to get his card back. And then of course he goes and he wins and has just an amazing. I asked Harris English if he was an agent working for this golfer's agency.
I hear stories like that often. That's funny and embarrassing. You know, just for that, Mike, you got to take your hat off. I'm gonna, just so you recognize us, if you do see us somewhere else. Here we go. This is what we look like.
There you go. I've been wearing a hat. I'm way overdue for a haircut. So
oh, COVID, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mike, your turn.
I don't know which. It's my turn, and I think I'm going to pull out. There's a tournament a friend of mine used to organize, and it was a fun tournament. It wasn't an organized, like, you know, a high level amateur tournament, serious event. It was a fun tournament a buddy of mine used to organize, and this one particular year we went up to the interior of BC, and in this round we were playing at Tobiano Golf Club. In the summer, it was about 42 degrees that day. It was insanely hot.
Celsius. We're in Canada.
So, yeah,
Celsius.
yeah. So and everyone's like, you know, drinks a lot the night before, and it was the final round, and basically there's 24 of us, maybe 10 guys finished. One guy was throwing up in the bunkers. We drank everything. It was so hot, like the ice couldn't stay in the golf carts. So we were buying warm Gatorades and anything to hydrate. It was awful. We shouldn't have been on the golf course. So it was just debauchery. And by the end of the round, I'm pulling off at 18, And my friend Scott, I didn't know it was him at the moment, but I see this body lying on the ground. There's the clubhouse and the patio, which has misters and everything. There's people out there eating, and there's this body face down in the shade underneath the patio. And so I'm driving over there. I'm like, oh my God, there's somebody dead under there. Like, and it turns out it was one of our buddies just passed out, in the shade, just having a nap. And I'm pretty sure they told us not to come back to the course after that.
You didn't go find a white tent for the DJ.
Yeah,
Mike, I've always wanted to play Tobiano. What have you done? This is a internationally broadcast show.
Yeah, well, exactly. This was years ago. I'm hoping they'll allow me back. But the quick plug to that golf course, we played it the Thursday before. We drove up and we played it, and it is spectacular. It's desert-ish terrain. There's a big lake on one side of it, and this particular night, it was partly cloudy in a twilight round, and the way the sun and clouds were reflecting on the golf course, it looked like we were playing golf on the moon. It was like the coolest experience that I'd ever seen, and really appreciated it. And rattlesnakes on the golf course. So that final round, there's a little small rattlesnake on the green that does poking with my putter and stuff. So it's a really really beautiful course.
Well, thanks.
Dangerous.
Thanks for sharing, guys. Those, it's always great to hear stories. Everybody's got unique stories. Golf is very special for that reason. Not only does everyone have multiple embarrassing and ridiculous stories on the golf course, they're beautiful experiences at the same time. And we've just gone over an hour. Mike, I just want to say thank you for sharing. Diane, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. Hopefully we'll meet again. Our paths will cross, and good luck with everything that you do. And thank you for supporting professional golf. For Diane Knox Balas, Michael Bleakley, I'm Raphael Calmat. You've been listening to the Golf Podcast Live. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for listening. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
And a special thanks to our sponsors, Drinkwell, Upper Hand Cards and Collectible, ECS, Evolve Creative Solutions Agency, Digital Marketing Needs. Guys, we'll see you next week. Make sure you share and subscribe. We'll talk soon.